Hello, welcome to another episode of Awakening Moments with Angie Donahue. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm going to be discussing the Bridge House at Hull Village. The Bridge House is a 20-plus bed homeless shelter serving the men and women and children of the Lakes region, Grafton County, and North Country, New Hampshire, as they work to transition from homelessness to permanent homes. The Bridge House is a unique commitment to homeless veterans who are never turned away and to the national mandate to end veteran homelessness. Their mission is to provide emergency shelter and support for individuals and families, enhance participants' abilities to return to the community by providing the necessary support, services, and skills training to enable them to achieve healthy independence and permanent housing, and of course to end veteran homelessness. And today I'm going to introduce to you Sheila O'Ranch, who is one of the members of the Bridge House at Hull Village. She's also an innkeeper, a wedding planner. She actually works or is owner, I believe, of the Copper Top Inn and Retreat Center. And it's in Hebron, New Hampshire. So welcome, Sheila. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you,
as
Angie.
we explore.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So we're exploring further into our communities, a little up on, I guess what you'd call the northern sections of the state of New Hampshire. However, again, it's another beautiful community space. I think I came across you when I was looking through and I saw something that you were having some kind of a benefit, and I connected with you to come on and let us know about the wonders of what you are all doing up there in the North Country. I call it the North Country. You live off of one of the most beautiful lakes that I love. And I'm just going to check with you. What is your position at the Bridge House at Hull Village?
I started as a volunteer, and now I'm a board member. And as a freshman board member, I am still learning my industry details because the homelessness industry is an extremely complicated space. And there's a lot to learn to be a board member. And I'm privileged to serve with a group of excellent, knowledgeable, sincere, diligent people. I'm thrilled.
Okay, and so how many years have you been volunteering with them?
I started in 2013 when I took over the Plymouth Townwide Yard Sale. The Plymouth Townwide Yard Sale, if I could flash a flyer.
You may.
There we go. This is the 21st year, and I always loved going to it. And when the Chamber of Commerce email went around that the previous organization that had benefited from it was giving it up, and there would not be a townwide yard sale unless someone took it up for another charity, I said, okay, I'll do it, because I wanted there to be a townwide yard sale. And after a great deal of research and consultation with people in the community, I chose the Homes for Our Veterans Fund at the Bridge House as the beneficiary. And the Homes for Our Veterans Fund is unique because it is private money and it is able to pay for the expenses of daily living for veterans and their families. For example, the first year, Kathy called me and she said, I want you to know what the money did this year. There was a veteran who came in who was 6'8", and none of the beds would fit him. With this money, and it's not very much, but it's something.
Yeah.
They were able to buy him an extra long bed, so he wouldn't be hanging off the bed. And it brings tears to my eyes every time, because everyone should have a comfortable bed.
Yeah. So you help out, and so when you do this, I'm going to take this for a second.
Sure.
When you do this yard sale, it's actually to benefit the Housing for Our Veterans. They hold it September 9th.
Yes, and it's rain or shine, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., hundreds of vendors. And
Okay, so
big group site.
anybody can participate as a vendor in this.
Yes, if they get a space at the group site.
Okay.
If they're in Plymouth, they can have a private site at their home or business or church.
Very good. So now housing for our veterans is what we call the Bridge House at Whole Village. How does that work
No, this is a
in?
special fund.
I want to see, yeah, okay, so
The difference is that the Bridge House is a regional homeless shelter. It accepts anyone, but it has a special concern for veterans and their families. Did you know that if a veteran is homeless, that veteran could go to the VA, but that veteran's wife or children cannot? And currently we have an 84-year-old veteran with his 83-year-old wife, and they are homeless or domestically challenged. And if he goes into the VA, she's alone. How's that fair?
That's pretty sad.
So currently they're at the Bridge House, and the Bridge House is working hard to find them a long-term supportive situation. Because that's what the Bridge House does.
Okay. You know, sometimes when you say, like, you know, my mind starts to work, and what I'm thinking here is, I know many people who are in the service, because I have some families on the sidelines of me that have been in the service. Some of them have been there for their lifetime. They've put in 10, 15 years. And in all that service time, their wives follow them around, or they stay home waiting for them to come back from wherever they've been deported out to. And it just blows my mind that a lady who has taken the significance of putting her time and efforts into being with this veteran when they were in active duty and dealing with, my husband's not home and I've got to do all this work around the house to keep it maintained, or me moving with, okay, the children are now going to be moving with us to Taiwan, or our children and I are going to be moving back to the States. When I think of that whole piece and how dedicated those wives are, I'm appalled to the thought that this is really, you're just saying this is just blowing my mind.
It blows my mind too, and their situation is going to turn into a hospice situation. So the Bridge House is currently becoming licensed and funded to keep them there through his end of life.
Yeah, and that, to me, that's a sad story. Our veterans are very much a part of why we have our freedoms. And when somebody gives their time and efforts and dedication, they deserve to be treated in a better situation.
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot of stereotypes about homelessness that are not necessarily realistic.
No. Now, homelessness, now actually the Bridge House at Whole Village, appears to me that it's not just veterans. You have other families that come in because they have no place else to go. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So, you know, to me, it could happen to anybody. It can happen to you tomorrow. It only takes a moment.
I've been so close to that at
It
different times
only
in my
takes a
life.
moment. If you give consideration to the thought, especially if you're working for a corporate world, they decide to pull the plug, you are there. Oh, yay. You get about, 3, 6, maybe 9 months of severance, and then that's it. You're done. You know, you could become ill, and God forbid, but that can happen. We're not, you know, we can be plagued. It only takes a few months of medical bills to take you away from where you truly were. It only takes a few months of, and I'd be shocked. I'd love to have people email me. I really do. I always invite people to email me. But I'd be very shocked to know how many people would be able to afford the nesting that they have, to be able to afford having their roof over their head for more than 6 months. Because primarily right now, to find a new position, it's at least 6 months. And you can go ahead and grab a burger and flip burgers for what, $8, $9 an hour, that's not going to cover your mortgage, that's not going to cover your electric bills.
Yeah.
And so therefore, eventually you end up going down into that, what we call the gutter.
Well, not only that, but the average small business in New Hampshire, now this is small family businesses, individually owned, is 1 week away from bankruptcy.
Yes.
When the power goes down, or the roads are blocked, or there's a giant ice storm, or all these floods and weather events, businesses go out. I mean, they just crash.
And
if
all
the
it takes.
family was depending on that business, they have very few choices. But I want to talk a little bit, if I could, about the stereotypes of homelessness.
Okay.
And this picture that you chose to feature is the people who are keeping those folks who are right on the edge or who've gone over the cliff, helping them to get out of that situation. This picture was from a workshop that the Bridge House conducted for other care providers in the state to share the system that the Bridge House has for diverting people from homelessness. The Bridge House is committed to ending homelessness, one person, one family at a time. And many, many of the participants who are served never actually hit the street because they call the Bridge House, they're at risk, they're right on that edge, and the Bridge House very holistically helps to coordinate the services that are going to keep that person or that family from becoming homeless. So it's diversion. But there are some situations, like there was an apartment fire, an apartment complex fire in Plymouth. 6 families were put out of their homes by that fire. Where were they going to go? That was a crowded week in the middle of winter, very close to Christmas. Really sad. So the stereotypes about homelessness are unrealistic. Can we show another picture?
Oh, please do.
Okay. This one, do you want to take that?
Yeah.
I got it. This is a homeless veteran and his children. And you think about the stereotypes of homelessness, which are old druggies and alcoholics on the street, or sometimes people who are mentally ill. Not necessarily. His wife died. He's got these beautiful children, and he's trying to take care of them, support them, have daycare and school and work. Is this what you think of as homelessness? Not what most people think of as homeless. That's not the image. But this is the reality. Not only that, we have other realities. This is a U.S. Navy veteran. Able and willing to work, needing a little support, a bit of an uplift, some services to help him get back in a situation where he and his children can be in a home and he can again be a contributing member of society. And all he needed was that little bit of uplift, that little bit of a helping hand, a boost, until he could get back on his feet, get his children into the school, and find after-school programs. And then move on with a very productive life. So that's a stereotype that we'd like to kill.
Yeah.
This is another of our veterans. And when you talked about what they give up, what they sacrifice, we're talking about their health, often their families, they lose the families. And there are very few shelters who will allow dogs, who will allow family pets. And this is a big problem. But the veterans can bring their dogs. They can bring their pets. And we talk now about emotional service animals. And there are some animals who are specially trained for special needs. But I will tell you that my pets are part of my family. And I never would move to a place where I couldn't have my animals. And that's why some people are on the streets, because they won't go into a shelter unless they can take, particularly their dogs are most common. So there you are, you're a homeless veteran in a wheelchair, your best friend and most loyal companion, and the only one left to you is your dog, and they say, well, you can go to the VA, but your family can't, and your dog can't. But they can at the Bridge House. And boy, did they get spoiled.
Okay.
By
so
everyone.
We're gonna move on to the next.
Yeah.
Very, and all of these are so true, and a lot of things that you don't think about because you never really are put into that situation on a daily occurrence. But when it does hit, that can be very.
It's shocking. It's shocking.
Animals, when you have pets, it's not only that they're a part of the family, it's also that piece that they're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
They actually help you with anytime you're having low feelings. They're there to spruce you up.
I remember
regardless
one time,
of whether it's yourself or your children or whoever. So it's definitely, they may have the clause of saying that there's service animals, but I feel that all pets are service animals to some extent.
when I was younger and I had had a tragic divorce and I avoided homelessness by moving into my friend's basement, it was a very nice basement. It was a fixed up basement, but it was still my friend's basement. And I was feeling really sad one day. And I just sat down on the edge of my bed and I was just moping, I think, and wondering what I should do. And I looked up, my cat climbed up into my lap purring, and I looked up and there were all my animals in a semicircle in front of me just sitting there looking at me. We love you.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, they're counting on me. My daughter was counting on me. All these animals were counting on me. And it just made me think, okay, I'm the pack leader now. I have to make this work. And it helped me get back on my feet.
Yeah.
It's not just companionship. It's that unconditional love and that total support that you get. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a little bit about what kind of care people get at the Bridge House.
Okay.
Everyone is welcome. And Kathy Bentwood, the director, told me that if I see somebody walking by the side of the road and they look like they need help, I can bring them to the Bridge House. They can get a shower and a meal and a little credit card that goes to the Ladder's thrift shop so they can get some warm clothing or a new pair of shoes or whatever they need. And that makes me feel so good because sometimes I do find people by the side of the road and I pick them up or wherever I find somebody and they're having a hard time, I can say, would you like to come to the Bridge House? And I know it's going to be good food because I am one of the volunteers who cooks dinners at the Bridge House. And I know the quality of the food and how we try to encourage people to learn how to eat healthy and to cook healthy. And it's really an interesting challenge for me because I cook a dinner once a month and I bring some of the ladies from my ladies group. And we're always trying to find, what can we do different this time? What haven't we done? What can we make that's super special? It doesn't cost more than we can afford to provide. So I know that they get a good meal and they get medical attention if they need it. And then they get counseling to help them find a situation where they can be stable long term. They also get, as this picture demonstrates, hands-on personal care. This is the case manager for the whole house, and she is taking care of this gentleman's foot. And this isn't a place where people get lip service for, we care about you, we want you to be okay. This is a place where I'm going to say the whole Bridge House community, the board and all the volunteers, are very hands-on helping people be okay. And if that's what you need, then that's what we'll do. And some people need a lot of care. And I have to say in a selfish way that when somebody moves on to a permanent housing situation and I go to cook dinner and they're not there, I'm like, well, where's David? Because I fall in love with people.
It's a lot of attachment.
And then I miss them. And they've gone to a better place. And that's not a euphemism. They've actually gone to a better place. Permanent supportive housing. And now they're okay, but I may never see them again. Although everyone is welcome to come back and visit. And we do have alumni of the Bridge House, people who passed through and went on to a better situation, come back and volunteer, come back and be donors, come back and visit, cook a dinner or share a dinner at the Bridge House. It's an extended family. And you might not always see all your kids or your cousins all the time, but it makes you feel good to know they're okay.
Very nice. So I think you have one
I have one
remaining
more
picture
I do.
to share with us.
I do. I mentioned Ladder's Thrift. Do you need to adjust that? And that is one of the ways the Bridge House funds its work without having to have government money. And this is becoming more important now. Ladder's Thrift is in an old house, an old building, 100 years old, right in downtown Plymouth. And it's the Veterans of Foreign Wars building. So the Bridge House made a deal with the veterans to update the building and take care of the building and do all of the maintenance. Yeah. They preserved their meeting room. The Bridge House installed a handicap bathroom because they didn't have one, and that's really important, and a wheelchair ramp. A lot of veterans have that. Yeah. And that space is where we sometimes have board meetings. Or when there's a huge donation, it gets sorted in there, but it has to all be cleaned out before they have their meeting. And Ladders has now 2 stories of all kinds of bargains. I donate and I shop, and it's really conservation of mass in my house. If I'm going to go to Ladders, I have to take something to donate. Otherwise, there won't be room in my house to bring something back. So when people need to have clothing and they need to have the items of daily use, you know, somebody could get you an apartment, but do you have a pot, as the saying goes? Do you have a toothbrush? Do you have linens? Do you have a pillow? I mean, what are you just going to do? Walk into an empty apartment and not have anything? So then they get a shopping allowance at Ladders, and they can go and furnish their apartment. And because all of the items at Ladders are donated by supporters of the Bridge House, well, the inventory can get quite extensive at times, especially when people are cleaning out estates.
Yeah.
And because Plymouth is a college town, there's this flow of worldly possessions where the students come and buy everything, and then in the spring when they graduated, they go home, they donate everything back. And so, so there's quite an ecosystem of recycling. And you might say it recycles people too, because Bridge House participants volunteer there and they learn job skills, and sometimes they get a real job working there. And then from that job, they move on to other jobs. So you're not just recycling the cute little china things and the clothing and shoes and handbags, you're recycling the people too. Or as we like to think of it, as upcycling the people because they're learning job skills and how to show up on time and all those things. And this is extremely important right now in this time of cutbacks in government money. It costs a lot of money to maintain a shelter, even one that is so successful with diverting people from homelessness. The statistics here are phenomenal in terms of the numbers of people who need support. And government money is drying up. So not only do we have Ladders Thrift, but we're also, by mid-August, if everything goes all right, opening a new, sorry, I don't have a big picture because it's under construction, flippin' furniture thrift shop that is focused more on the big things. They can't always fit into Ladders. And that is going to be where the job training program is going to be on a full-time basis, with people really learning a lot of job skills, customer service, and how to manage things and how to organize things and whatever the skills are that they need to have there. So flippin' furniture.
That's the next piece of
That's
it.
the next piece. There will be a Facebook page.
So from listening to your discussion, and thank you for sharing all of those moments of, what homelessness looks like, what's the many faces of it. But in doing this, I'm realizing as you speak that the Bridge House isn't just a homeless shelter. It's an oasis where people can actually learn how to take care of themselves, learn how to develop their own living skills.
They do. Everyone has chores, and the chores rotate.
Yeah.
They get lessons in how to prepare food if they don't already know how. Although many people who are homeless have good job skills already. Many of them came out of the hospitality and food service industry. They have been licensed as food servers. They know how to do it, but it's really hard to get a job. Because Plymouth doesn't have a lot of employers and it's a very small town, it's not a good place for people to come from other parts of the state if they have another choice. Say they're in Nashua. But people from Nashua, some of those providers that you saw before, will call the Bridge House intake line because they know that the Bridge House people know where they can take that person in Nashua. They know where you can take those people in Merrimack or Manchester. Not everybody in the state has as comprehensive a knowledge of the systems in the state or the places where people can go or what the resources or how to fund them. So the Bridge House is almost like a clearinghouse of social services for people who are either homeless or on the brink of being homeless. And with the current opioid epidemic and the mental health issues and the lack of beds, I mean, somebody who is taken up by the police in Manchester, for example, needing a psychiatric position, they might be on a wait list for a week or two. People can't wait for that kind of thing. They need short-term emergency care. So it might not be a good thing to bus them up to Plymouth, but when the providers call, the Bridge House will help them find a place near where their family is, near where their roots are, near where their support system is.
Support systems may be.
So that they can get the care that they need and keep them off the streets.
So that means that the Bridge House also looks into the whole dynamics of the entire state, not just their own little community.
Right, and I'm going to say that as I am learning, if you go to the New Hampshire Conference on Homelessness in September, you will meet hundreds of people from all over the state who are there to learn and to network and to share and to figure out how everyone can help everyone. It's not a solo act at all. It's really has to be a team effort. And there are so many different agencies, and there isn't any one coordinating agency. It's pretty amazing that anything gets done. And it's because that bunch of people that you saw at the very beginning, they're all so sincere and working so hard to help people that one way or another, they find a way to get it done. They find a way to help. And with the government cutbacks in funding and the not understanding that our most vulnerable people need that care and are worthy as human beings, as living creatures, as American citizens, needing that care, those people put it all on the line,
Yes.
working way more than they get paid for.
Let me put them back up. You know, in any community, you need the helpers, and the helpers can be you, can be anyone in the community.
Oh, welcome volunteers.
Yeah. And as everyone knows on my show, I kind of throw that out and always say, you know, even though they're up in Plymouth, New Hampshire, there's other pieces I'm sure you could find volunteers for.
Oh, sure. There are places to volunteer. Now, one of the things that holds people back from volunteering is they're afraid. They're afraid of the people they might meet at one of these places. They're afraid they might get a disease. They're afraid that they're going to be emotionally overwhelmed by all the need. And I assure you that the Bridge House and the other shelters are very good at helping volunteers to find what's just the right thing for them to do. If you're not a hands-on person, you can stuff envelopes. You can be in the office sorting things. You don't actually have to be out there as much. Like me, if you love to cook, well, for me, feeding people is like my joy. Some people do puzzles. I do garden and menus. So I love to go there and cook. And there's so much appreciation for that. But it could be if somebody likes to sew, making cute little things for the children at Bridge House. It can be volunteering at the fun fair. The family fun fair is coming up on July 15th. And it's a whole giant field full of inflatable toy things. And I'm going to be hosting the kids' craft tent with a lady who just randomly volunteered to help because she's an artist and she does wonderful things. And they're the people who are going to be selling corn dogs and selling raffle tickets and painting faces. Whatever you do, there's a shelter or a food bank or how about those churches that have a dinner? You know, they call it Dinner for All. And whether it's Thursday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Sunday morning, go and help. If you don't like to cook, you can set the tables. There's
Now,
always something to do.
One of the things I want to reach out to, because you made a very good point in the beginning of that, the fear of what am I going to find if I go and help these people. I'll tell you, as I volunteer at times, I formerly have volunteered in shelters. You're going to find that there are people just like you were, or they were as you are now. And there are people who have lost their way. There are people who have fallen into hard times. They are people that you could be tomorrow. And so don't look at them as, what am I going to catch? Oh, you know, what type of person am I going to meet up there? Look at them as, I'm helping support another human being who could very well be me. And once you start to have discussions with some of these people, because you will, that happens when you start to volunteer, you always find one or two that you really fall in love with. Because you're going to find that they have a lot of the similar ideas, inspirations as you do. They're not, you know, don't give them that, oh, they're homeless people. Don't give them their, oh, you know, they're people that need to learn how to control their expenses. No, they're people who need to have a hand in order to make a better world around them. Just as someday maybe you, your children, your parents, there's many, many people around you that may fall into this category unexpectedly in a split moment. So, you know, reach out your hand, and yes, Bridge House is up in Plymouth, but there are many places throughout our communities that hold to this near and dear piece of bringing homeless shelters, bringing people to understand how to prosper, how to bring themselves back into the light of being a part of their full community again. And by you neglecting that, you're only serving the purpose of making it an issue rather than fixing it. So I tell you to give it a chance, give it a whirl. You'll be surprised what you'll see. Now, I also have another question for Sheila. So, Sheila, I also heard that your volunteers and all these beautiful people that we have pictured here, and I'm sure others who aren't even in the picture, also help people who are almost on the brink of falling off the ladder. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get into that a little bit closer.
Sure.
How does that come to your enlightenment? How is that brought through? Do they search for them? Do people find you? Because I know, a lot of people, if they're on that brink of the ladder, they have a lot of pride. And so they'll hold themselves back. And sometimes they hold themselves back to the point where now it's too late. So how does that all happen?
That's an excellent question. For example, a family that got behind on their rent, and they kept getting farther and farther behind on their rent until they got an eviction notice. Mm-hmm. It does take a while to process an eviction. So they had time to reach out and ask for help. Mm-hmm. So they were able to be diverted to, and that landlord was disillusioned with them. Even when the rent was all caught up, the Bridge House helped them catch up their rent and helped them budget for the future. The landlord said, no, I don't want them in my place. So there they were, homeless. And the Bridge House helped them find a new place, did some budget training. It's convenient that it's on the Whole Village campus because Whole Village has ongoing programs on financial responsibility, how to run a household, how to budget. They have cooking classes for parents. They have parenting classes.
Can anyone go to those?
Yes, anyone can certainly go to them.
So you don't have to be...
You don't have to be a participant in the Bridge House. You just want to be a member of the community who needs to learn more. That's fine.
And you can come from different areas, or do you have to...
Well, I don't see any reason why not. It'd be kind of a long drive, but they would help
if somebody's
you.
in need of finding how to structure themselves, it's not a bad drive to take.
It's not a bad drive to take, but the Bridge House will also find you those programs in your own community.
Oh, okay.
It's just convenient that the Bridge House is on the campus of the Whole Village, and it's walking distance up the driveway.
So now, so now you bring another question to my mind. What about these other communities, these other places that you direct them to? Do those places do pretty much the same?
Wow, that's a really good question. I'm not a case manager.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer and a board member.
But it's very interesting
I'm still learning the ropes.
I haven't really heard of that. This is like the first time I've heard of.
Okay, so this is like
a space that's actually saying, well, we can't help you because you're in such and such a location.
Right.
So now these are the suggestions we have for you.
Well, our case managers are just phenomenal.
Obviously.
And this is the model that we're trying to build, is to end homelessness by diversion and by providing services so people don't ever actually hit the street. That's what I said before, because they just don't know what services are available. I will tell you.
Nobody knows that that's available. If that's available in this area, I'd love to know that it's available because I know many people that could use it.
Yes. Well, when you walk into a social service situation, there's this whole language of acronyms and initials and agencies and paperwork you wouldn't believe. I mean, paperwork and the language of it and all the requirements and all the documentation. And that's a great deal of what the intake people do, is help someone work through it all, find out all of the resources they have. There are people who have benefits who don't know they have benefits. They don't know that they could be getting Social Security. Mm-hmm. There are veterans who don't know that they have veterans benefits.
Right.
So you're asking me about other areas, and I haven't been to other areas. I'm still, as I said, a freshman board member learning my way through this very complex world of how to help and save people. And this is my home team,
okay.
So I know the most about it. I can't tell you too much about the other ones.
It's very interesting that this is all that is given. Now, so my experience, because I help people at times, the forms. I help people with the forms.
That's what
I have had people who didn't even realize that, like you just said, it's amazing, didn't know that they could apply for their Social Security benefits. And I've actually had to help them because the forms that you're filling out are incredible on any, somebody hurt themselves and they need short-term disability and they, and there's forms and there's more forms. And they get, I've been with people who have filled out the forms and had them sent back to them because this is missing or this is done incorrectly. And now I've actually come to points, and I volunteer this time, I'll actually sit with them, have them write out what they need to, fix what they had to. I will walk it down to one of the support agencies and sit there and they'll like ready to take it and yeah, we'll get back to you. And I'm like, no, I'm sitting here. You would look that over because they're not going to be sending it in again. I want to make sure they have everything they need before I walk out of here.
Let me give you an
And
analogy.
that's pretty scary that you have to do that.
Oh.
But it's an everyday, I mean, that's the best way to do it.
Well, if you walk into a government agency, it's not their job to help you fill out your forms.
No.
They'll just say, this is incomplete.
That's right.
Go back and do it again.
Yeah.
The government doesn't have the money, the budget, to have people to be helpers with those forms. The intake workers at the Bridge House, they're expert at getting these people help. Let me give you an example that most of your viewers who are of my era and went to college or had children going to college might identify with, and that's filling out the financial aid form for student aid. If you thought that was hard, getting disability or getting your Social Security benefits or your veterans benefits makes that look like fun. It's all those little boxes and forms. And it is true that some of the people who are in a homelessness situation have literacy problems, or they have vision problems, or they just didn't get a chance to be well educated. To fill out all these forms, even to ask them the questions, they don't understand the question.
Yeah.
The whole vocabulary of social services is just a completely different language. So just helping people to get through that maze of how to get help is a huge service. And the Bridge House is dedicated to putting itself out of business, except as an emergency shelter. Something happens, there's a physical disaster for a person, because we can help people find what they need and never have to be homeless. That's the ideal. The Bridge House is also working to create what's called permanent supportive housing for veterans, because there are some people who are perfectly functional, nice, intelligent people who just can't make it on their own, and there aren't very many options.
Right.
You've definitely heard of some of the veterans housing projects that are starting, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
There's a new project that passed the planning board up in Plymouth, up on Boulder Point, which is called the Harmony House, and that's going to be permanent assistive housing.
Good.
But it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
It really is a drop in the bucket.
So we've gone through a lot of information today.
Sorry to overwhelm you. It's a big topic.
Look at this again. It's something that everyone should be aware of. Homelessness doesn't just hit those that are not supportive of themselves. Homelessness can hit in the drop of a dime. So everybody, pay attention to what you're doing. Allow yourself to look at the perspective of homelessness and try to help in your communities to bring about a mission as is shown here with the Bridge House, one that brings people to the empowerment of being able to support themselves, of being able to maintain themselves, and have pride in all that they have. we thank you, Sheila, for coming and being with us today.
I'm honored.
If you need any more information, there will be a prompt for Sheila so you can be able to reach her. And again, we say goodbye for another week. Enjoy the week ahead of you. Have fun in the sun, and we'll see you next week on Awakening Moments with Angie.